The Wi-Fi password was taped under the table, but I'd memorized it weeks ago. That's how often I'd been coming to this cafe in Midtown, stealing internet like it was oxygen, because my landlord had shut off my service 3 days after I stopped answering his calls about the overdue rent. The place smelled like burnt espresso and expensive perfume, all marble countertops and Edison bulbs hanging from exposed brick. I didn't belong here. Not anymore. My fingers cramped around the trackpad as I scrolled through another rejection email. Thank you for your submission, but we're moving forward with other candidates. The words blurred together after the 15th one. Freelance writing didn't pay the bills when nobody wanted to hire a woman who'd disappear from maternity leave in 4 months. I shifted in the leather chair, trying to find a position where my spine didn't feel like it was being crushed by the weight pressing against it. 6 months pregnant, and the baby felt like she was already trying to escape. The purple sweater I'd chosen this morning, soft, stretchy, the only thing that still fit, had ridden up over the curve of my belly. I tugged it down with one hand, the other still typing, still trying to finish this pitch before the cafe closed at 6. My laptop was running on 12% battery. I'd forgotten the charger at home, which wasn't really home, just a studio apartment in a building that smelled like mold and broken dreams. The deadline for the article proposal was in 20 minutes. If I didn't land this gig, I wouldn't make rent. Again. Evelyn. The voice sliced through the ambient jazz and the hiss of the milk steamer. I knew it the way you know the sound of a car crash before you turn around. Knew it in my bones, in the scar tissue that still hadn't healed from the divorce. I looked up slowly, my hands frozen on the keyboard. Andrew's voice stood 5 feet from my table, his blonde hair slicked back with something that probably cost more than my grocery budget. His blue eyes traveled over me, and I watched his expression shift from shock to something darker, something that curled his lip at the corner. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him like a second skin, the kind of tailoring that screamed boardrooms and country clubs, the kind of man who'd always cared more about how things looked than how they felt. The woman beside him was a weapon, thin, polished, her red dress hugging every angle that I no longer had. Her hand rested on his forearm like a brand of ownership. She looked at me the way you'd look at roadkill, with pity and disgust in equal measure. Oh my God. Andrew's mouth twisted into something approximating a smile, but his eyes stayed cold. I almost didn't recognize you. My throat tightened. I hadn't seen him since the morning I'd signed the papers at the lawyer's office 8 months ago, his signature already dry on the line, like he'd been counting down the days. I'd built my life around not seeing him, changed my routes, deleted my social media, became a ghost. Andrews, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. Small victory. I didn't know you came here. I don't, usually. His gaze dropped to my stomach and stayed there, his expression unreadable. But you clearly do. The woman shifted closer to him, her nails digging slightly into his sleeve. She examined me with the clinical efficiency of someone checking for threats and finding none. I registered somewhere below concern, below competition. I reached for my laptop, fingers brushing the edge. I should get back to work. Come on, don't be like that. Andrew stepped closer, and suddenly he was blocking the narrow space between my chair and the table behind me. His shadow fell across my screen. I'm just surprised, that's all. He glanced at his girlfriend, then back at me. You look different. Different. I repeated the word like it was in a foreign language. Yeah, you know. He gestured at me, a vague wave of his hand that encompassed everything. My unwashed hair pulled into a messy bun, the purple sweater with the stretched neckline, the way I sat hunched over my laptop like I was trying to disappear into it. Then his face rearranged itself into something resembling concern, and I felt my stomach drop. You've really let yourself go, Evelyn. I mean, I know the divorce was rough, but this? He shook his head. You look like a fat pig. I really dodged a bullet. The cafe tilted. The conversations around us bled into static. I was suddenly aware of every person who might be watching. Might be listening to Andrew's voice tell his pathetic ex-wife that she'd failed at even basic human maintenance. My face burned. I'm not. Not what? His eyebrows shot up in exaggerated surprise. Not eating your feelings? Because it sure looks like it. You used to be so disciplined, remember? No carbs after 6. No dessert. All those spin classes. He leaned against my table, casual, like we were old friends. What happened, Evelyn? Did you just give up? His girlfriend laughed, a high, tinkling sound that made my teeth clench. Andrews, come on. Maybe she's just happy now. Happy? Andrews snorted. Is that what we're calling it? I tried to stand, but he didn't move. His body blocked the exit, and the pregnancy had made me slow, made me awkward. My laptop bag was on the chair beside me, my phone face down on the table, just out of reach. He knew what he was doing. I could see it in the slight curve of his mouth. Excuse me, I said, my voice flat. I need to leave. Where to? He tilted his head, fake curiosity dripping from every word. Another freelance gig that pays pennies? Because I heard through the grapevine that you're doing what? Blog content now? His gesture swept over everything, the battered laptop held together with electrical tape, the second-hand sweater, the coffee I'd been nursing for 2 hours because I couldn't afford a second cup. That must be going really well. I couldn't answer. Couldn't correct him. Couldn't tell him the truth because the truth was worse than anything he could imagine. That the baby pressing against my ribs wasn't the result of letting myself go or eating my feelings. That I was hiding in this cafe not because I loved overpriced lattes, but because I was hiding from the father, from Yusok, from the man whose world I'd run from the moment I saw the double pink lines on the test. I'm just worried about you, Evelyn. Andrew's voice softened, became almost tender, which was infinitely worse than the mockery. This isn't healthy. You're obviously eating for 2 now, but you don't have to eat for 10. He reached out like he was going to touch my shoulder, and I flinched back. Maybe you should see someone, a therapist, a nutritionist, someone who can help you get back to... Is this insect bothering you, Evelyn? The voice came from behind Andrews, low and controlled, with an accent that turned the words into something dangerous. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. I'd heard that voice in my dreams, in my nightmares, in every quiet moment over the past 6 months, when I'd wondered if running had been the right choice. Yusok. Andrews turned, and I watched his face cycle through confusion, irritation, then something that might have been fear. Yusok stood 3 feet behind him, hands in the pockets of a black suit that probably cost more than Andrews's car. But it wasn't the suit that made Andrews take a half step back. It was the ink crawling up Yusok's neck, the intricate patterns of dragons and chrysanthemums that disappeared beneath his collar. It was the way he looked at Andrews like he was deciding which bones to break first. Who the hell are you? Andrews tried to sound authoritative, but his voice cracked on the last word. Yusok didn't answer him. His eyes, dark, unreadable, stayed locked on mine. Evelyn, he said, and my name had never sounded like that before. Like a question and a promise and a threat all at once. You stopped answering my calls. My voice died in my throat. This is a private conversation, Andrews said, puffing up his chest, trying to reclaim the space Yusok had stolen just by existing. So why don't you... Yusok's hand moved so fast I almost didn't see it. One moment Andrews was talking, the next Yusok's fingers were wrapped around his shoulder, pressing into the pressure point with surgical precision. Andrew's face went white. His knees buckled. The girlfriend let out a small shriek and stumbled backward, her heel catching on the chair leg. When a man speaks to a woman the way you just did, Yusok said, his voice never rising above conversational, he stops being a man. He becomes an insect. He applied more pressure, and Andrews made a strangled sound. And insects get crushed. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean... Andrews gasped, his hand clawing uselessly at Yusok's wrist. Yusok released him, and Andrews stumbled backward into his girlfriend, who looked like she was trying to decide whether to run or record this for social media. Yusok turned to me, his expression softening in a way that made my chest ache. Come, he said simply, offering me his hand. We need to talk. I stared at his hand, tattooed knuckles, a thin scar across his thumb from a knife fight he'd never told me about but I'd traced with my fingers anyway. Behind him, Andrews was nursing his shoulder, his face red with humiliation and rage. The cafe had gone silent. Everyone was watching. I took Yusok's hand. Let him pull me to my feet, steady me when the weight of the baby made me sway. He picked up my laptop, my bag, my cold coffee, and guided me toward the door with a hand on the small of my back. Just before we left, he looked back at Andrews. If you ever speak to her again, Yusok said, and his voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. They won't find enough of you to fill a shoebox. Then we were outside, the cold air hitting my face, and I was shaking so hard I couldn't tell if it was from fear or relief or something else entirely. Welcome back to the channel. Before we see how Andrews pays for his mistake, I want to know, where are you watching from and what time is it in your city? Drop it in the comments below. And if you're ready to see a bully get exactly what he deserves, smash that like button and subscribe right now. Because trust me, what happens next is going to blow your mind. The car was waiting at the curb, black and gleaming like a predator. Yusok opened the rear door without asking if I wanted to get in, and I realized with a sick jolt that I didn't have a choice. Not really. Not with Andrew still visible through the cafe window. His face twisted with rage and humiliation, his girlfriend's phone already out, probably texting everyone they knew about what had just happened. I slid into the back seat, and the door closed behind me with a sound like a bank vault sealing shut. The interior was all black leather and tinted windows. The kind of car that cost more than I'd make in 5 years of freelance work. Yusok settled beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that I'd tried to forget but hadn't. The driver pulled away from the curb without being told where to go, and I understood that this had been planned, that Yusok had known where to find me, had probably known for days or weeks, had been watching and waiting for the right moment to reveal himself. "How long have you been following me?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. 3 weeks. He didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead at the privacy screen separating us from the driver. Give or take. 3 weeks. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. And you waited until today, too. I wanted to see if you'd come to me on your own. Now he did turn, his eyes finding mine in the dim light. But you're stubborn. Always have been. I pressed my palm against my belly, feeling the baby shift beneath my hand. She was active today, probably sensing my stress, my elevated heart rate. I'd read somewhere that babies could feel their mother's emotions even in the womb. If that was true, mine was drowning in fear and confusion, and something else I didn't want to name. You shouldn't have come, I said quietly. I left for a reason. I know your reasons. His jaw tightened. You think I don't understand? You think I didn't spend 6 months trying to figure out what I did wrong, what I said, why you disappeared in the middle of the night without even a fucking note? The profanity surprised me. Yusok rarely swore, at least not in English. He saved his anger for Korean. Let it flow in words I only half understood but felt completely. It wasn't about you, I started. But he cut me off with a sound that might have been a laugh if it hadn't been so bitter. It was about the baby, my baby. He gestured at my stomach. The daughter you're carrying, the child you decided I didn't deserve to know about. That's not... I stopped because what could I say? That I hadn't wanted my child raised around violence? Around men with guns and tattoos and blood under their fingernails? That I'd seen the way Yusok's world worked and decided my baby deserved better? I couldn't do it, I said finally. I couldn't bring a child into that life. Your life. The car turned onto a highway, buildings giving way to trees. We weren't heading toward my apartment. I realized I hadn't told him where I lived, but of course he already knew. He'd known for 3 weeks. My life. Yusok repeated the words like they tasted wrong. You mean the life that kept you safe? The life that gave you everything you asked for? The life you walked away from without giving me a chance to change it? People like you don't change. The words came out harsher than I meant them to. You run an empire, Yusok. An empire built on things I can't even think about without feeling sick. What was I supposed to do? Raise our daughter in a penthouse while you were out doing God knows what? You were supposed to trust me. His voice dropped to something dangerous. You were supposed to tell me you were pregnant and let me decide what kind of father I wanted to be. And what kind is that? I turned to face him fully now. Anger overriding fear. The kind who teaches her to shoot before she can read. The kind who brings her to meetings with men who'd kill her if it served their purpose. The kind who would burn the entire fucking world down to keep her safe. He grabbed my hand, pressed it against his chest where I could feel his heart hammering. The kind who spent 6 months searching every city, every town, every goddamn corner of this country because the woman he loved vanished with his child. I tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. Yusok, I never stopped looking. His eyes were black in the shadows, unreadable. Not for a single day. I put every resource I had into finding you. Do you know what that means? Do you understand what I gave up, what I risked, just to get you back? I didn't ask you to. You didn't have to ask. He released my hand but didn't look away. You're mine, Evelyn. You were mine the moment you walked into that gallery opening and spilled wine on my suit. You were mine every night you spent in my bed, every morning you woke up next to me. And this baby? He reached out slowly, giving me time to stop him, and placed his palm over mine on my stomach. She's mine too. The baby kicked against our joined hands, a strong jolt that made me gasp. Yusok's expression shifted, something raw and unguarded crossing his face before he locked it down again. She's strong, he said quietly, like her mother. I can't go back to that world. My voice broke on the last word. I won't. Then I'll leave it. He said it so simply, like it was nothing. Like he was talking about changing jobs, not dismantling an entire organization. I'll walk away from all of it. The business, the men, the territory. All of it. You can't just... I can do whatever I want. His hand tightened over mine. I'm the head of the organization. If I say I'm out, I'm out. There are rules, protocols. It'll take time, but I can make it happen. You'd give up everything? For us? I already lost everything when you left. He leaned back against the seat, exhaustion showing in the lines around his eyes. The rest is just details. The car slowed, turning onto a private road I didn't recognize. Trees pressed close on either side, their branches forming a canopy overhead. We drove for another minute before a house appeared, modern and sprawling, all glass and steel nestled into the hillside. Where are we? I asked. Somewhere safe. Yusok opened his door as the car stopped. Somewhere your ex-husband and anyone else can't find you. Not until we figure this out. I didn't agree to this. I know. He offered me his hand again. But you're going to anyway. Because you saw the way that insect looked at you in that cafe. You saw what he thinks of you. What he'd do to you if he knew about me. About her. His eyes dropped to my stomach. So you're going to come inside, and you're going to listen to what I have to say, and then you're going to decide if you really want to do this alone. I stared at his hand, remembering the first time he'd offered it to me. At the gallery, after I'd ruined his suit with Cabernet. He'd laughed instead of getting angry, had asked me to dinner, had changed my entire life with 5 words. Let me buy you a drink. I took his hand and let him help me out of the car. The baby shifted again, settling low in my pelvis, and I wondered if she knew, if somehow she understood that we'd just crossed a threshold we could never uncross. Behind us, the car door closed with a sound like fate sealing shut. The penthouse wasn't a home, it was a statement. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city from the 42nd floor, the kind of view that made you feel like a god looking down on mortals. Everything was white, or glass, or both marble countertops, leather furniture, abstract art that probably cost more than my college tuition. There was a kitchen I'd never use, a bathroom with a tub big enough to drown in, and a bedroom with a bed so large I could starve to death before I reached the other side. Yusok had left me here 3 days ago with a credit card, a phone that only called him, and 2 men stationed outside the door who looked like they could break me in half without spilling their coffee. I was a prisoner in a gilded cage, and the worst part was that the cage was beautiful. I stood at the window now, watching the city lights blink on as dusk settled over the skyline. From up here, everything looked clean, organized, safe. You couldn't see the coffee stains on the pavement, or the desperation in people's eyes, or the way men like Andrew's Boyce walked through the world thinking they owned it. My phone buzzed on the counter. Not the one Yusok had given me. I'd shoved that in a drawer after the first dozen calls I'd ignored. This was my old phone, the one I'd managed to keep hidden in my laptop bag. The screen lit up with another email notification. Another job rejection. I didn't bother reading it anymore. The door locks clicked, and I turned to see Yusok entering with takeout bags that smelled like Thai food. He'd changed out of the suit into dark jeans and a black t-shirt that showed more of the ink crawling down his arms. Dragons and tigers and flowers that meant things I'd never fully understood. "You're not eating," he said, setting the bags on the kitchen island. Not a question. An accusation. "I'm not hungry. The baby needs food. The baby is fine." I wrapped my arms around my stomach, a gesture that had become automatic, protective. I had toast this morning. Toast. He pulled containers from the bags with controlled movements. You're 6 months pregnant, Evelyn. You need more than toast. What I need is to leave. I gestured at the windows, the pristine furniture, the silent luxury that was suffocating me. This isn't living, Yusok. This is existing in a very expensive box. This is safety. He opened a container of pad thai, the steam rising between us. Your ex-husband is looking for you. Do you understand that? He's asking questions, making calls, trying to find out who I am. Something cold slithered down my spine. How do you know that? Because I'm watching him the same way I watched you. Yusok's expression didn't change. The difference is he's loud about it, sloppy. He went to 3 private investigators yesterday. Showed them all a picture of me from the cafe. Someone's phone caught the whole thing. I sank onto one of the bar stools, my legs suddenly unsteady. What did you do? Nothing yet. He pushed the food toward me. But if he keeps digging, he's going to find things that will make him wish he'd stayed quiet. You can't hurt him. Why not? Yusok leaned against the counter, his arms crossed. He hurt you, humiliated you in public, called you. He stopped, his jaw working. I should have broken more than his shoulder, because I'm not that person. My voice rose despite my effort to stay calm. I'm not someone who solves problems with violence. That's why I left you in the first place. No. He moved around the island until he was standing in front of me. You left because you were scared, because you thought my world would corrupt our daughter. But you're wrong, Evelyn. My world is the only thing that can protect her from men like Andrew's Boyce. Across the city, in a cramped office that smelled like stale coffee and desperation, Andrew's Boyce sat hunched over his laptop, his shoulder still throbbing from where that tattooed psychopath had grabbed him. The pain pills his doctor had prescribed weren't working. Nothing was working except the rage that had been building for 3 days straight. His girlfriend, ex-girlfriend now. She dumped him the morning after the cafe incident, had posted the video online. 47,000 views and counting. Him, on his knees, being manhandled by some thug while Evelyn watched. The comments were brutal. Karma, that's what you get. Maybe don't call pregnant women fat pigs, asshole. He'd deleted all his social media accounts, but the damage was done. His boss had called him in for a chat about maintaining the company's reputation. His mother had left 6 voicemails, each one more disappointed than the last, all because of Evelyn. His pathetic, freelancing, knocked-up ex-wife who'd somehow found herself a guard dog with tattoos and anger management issues. Andrews clicked through the photos he'd managed to screenshot before his accounts went dark. The man's face, partially visible. The ink on his neck. The way he moved, precise and lethal, like violence was a second language. The first PI had been useless. Could be anybody, he'd said, pocketing Andrew's retainer check. Tattoos like that are common in certain circles. You want me to find a needle in a haystack of criminals? The second PI had been more helpful but equally expensive. That ink style is Korean, she'd told him, zooming in on the photo. Traditional, probably gang-affiliated. You sure you want to find this guy? Men like this don't appreciate being found. The third PI had laughed in his face. That's Yusok, he'd said, sliding the photo back across his desk. And if you're smart, you'll forget you ever saw him. Forget the girl. Forget the whole thing. But Andrews wasn't smart. He was angry. And when he Googled the name Yusok Korean businessman, the results had made his blood run cold and then boiling hot. Real estate mogul. Philanthropist. And buried in the back pages, if you knew where to look, whispers of something darker. Organized crime. Territory disputes. A man who'd built an empire on foundations no one wanted to examine too closely. Evelyn had been sleeping with a gangster. His ex-wife, who used to cry during violent movies, who wouldn't even kill spiders in their apartment, had gotten herself knocked up by Korean Mafia. Andrews leaned back in his chair, a smile spreading across his face despite the pain in his shoulder. This was perfect. Better than perfect. This was leverage. He opened a new browser window and started typing. If Evelyn thought she could humiliate him and walk away, she was wrong. If she thought her tattooed boyfriend could threaten him and face no consequences, she was delusional. He'd find out everything about Yusok. Every business deal, every property, every skeleton in every closet, and then he'd decide what to do with the information. Maybe go to the police, maybe go to the press, maybe just go directly to Evelyn and watch her squirm. His phone buzzed with a text from his lawyer. "Stop calling investigators. You're going to get yourself in trouble." Andrews deleted the message. Trouble was exactly what he wanted, just not for himself. Back in the penthouse, I watched Yusok move through the kitchen with practiced efficiency, plating food I wouldn't eat, making tea I wouldn't drink. He was trying, in his way, trying to be something other than what he was. "I can't stay here forever," I said quietly. "I know," he set a plate in front of me, "but you can stay here until it's safe, until I've handled the Andrews problem." "And how long will that take?" He met my eyes, and I saw the truth there before he spoke it. "As long as it needs to." The baby kicked hard against my ribs, and I wondered if she could feel it too. The walls closing in, the future narrowing to a single point where violence was inevitable and safety was just another word for cage. Andrews is the type of guy who can't take no for an answer. Humiliated in public, nursing a bruised ego and a damaged shoulder. And instead of learning his lesson, he's digging deeper into Yusok's world, a world he has no business entering. If you can't stand toxic exes who think they own you, who can't let go even when they've already moved on, like this video right now, because trust me, Andrews is about to learn that some doors should stay closed. The email arrived at 6:47 a.m., delivered with the cold efficiency of legal proceedings that had been set in motion days before I'd ever know they existed. I was sitting at the penthouse island, forcing down yogurt that tasted like chalk, when my old phone buzzed with the notification. Notice of legal action. Myers v. Boyce. Case No. 2026 CV8847. My hands shook as I opened the attachment. 12 pages of legal language that might as well have been written in hieroglyphics for all I could understand it. But certain phrases jumped out, clear and brutal as knife wounds. Breach of confidential marital agreements. Unauthorized use of proprietary information. Immediate injunction freezing all assets pending resolution. I scrolled faster, my heart climbing into my throat. Andrews was suing me. Not for alimony or custody or any of the normal post-divorce grievances. He was claiming that the freelance writing I'd been doing, the pharmaceutical translations, the technical documents, the content that had barely kept me alive violated some NDA from our marriage. An NDA I didn't remember signing. An NDA that probably didn't exist. But it didn't matter if it existed or not. What mattered was the court order at the end of the document, signed by a judge whose name I didn't recognize, freezing my bank accounts effective immediately pending a preliminary hearing in 30 days. I tried to breathe and couldn't. The penthouse suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I'd had $473 in my checking account. Not enough to survive on, but enough to feel like I still had options. Like I could still walk away from Yusok and his world if I needed to. Andrews had just taken that away. My phone slipped from my fingers and clattered on the marble counter. I stared at it, watching the screen go dark, and felt something inside me go dark with it. This wasn't about money. This was about control. About making me pay for the humiliation in the cafe, for daring to move on, for having the audacity to be pregnant with another man's child. The door locks clicked. Yusok entered carrying his morning coffee, already dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my frozen bank accounts had ever held. He took one look at my face and set the coffee down. What happened? I couldn't speak, just pushed the phone toward him with trembling fingers. He read the email in silence, his expression never changing. When he finished, he set the phone down carefully, precisely, the way you'd set down something fragile that you were afraid of breaking. "This is interesting," he said. "Interesting?" My voice cracked. "He's freezing my accounts, Yusok. Everything I have. The rent on my apartment, my utilities, my—" I stopped because what was the point? I didn't have an apartment anymore. I'd missed 2 months of rent before Yusok found me. I'd been living in this penthouse for a week, pretending I still had a life to go back to. "He's starving you out." Yusok pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. Classic intimidation tactic. Make you desperate, make you dependent, then offer to drop the suit in exchange for something he wants. What could he possibly want from me? Yusok looked up, and his expression was almost amused. "Not from you. From me. This is a message, Evelyn. He's telling me that he can hurt you legally, publicly, in ways I can't respond to with violence without proving I'm exactly what he thinks I am. So what do we do? I hated how small my voice sounded, how defeated. We? Yusok smiled, and it was the kind of smile that probably gave his enemies nightmares. We do what your ex-husband is too stupid to realize he's just invited us to do. We fight him with money. He pressed call and lifted the phone to his ear. James? It's Yusok. I need you to do something for me. I watched him pace to the windows, his voice dropping into rapid Korean that I couldn't follow. But I caught names, numbers, legal terminology that sounded expensive. He spoke for 3 minutes, maybe 4, then ended the call and immediately made another. Karen? Yes. It's been too long. I need your firm. All of it. I'm forwarding you a lawsuit right now. No, don't read it yet. Just tell me how fast you can bury it. He paused, listening. Good. Bill it to my personal account. And Karen? I want the other party bankrupt by the time you're done. Not broke. Bankrupt. I want his credit destroyed, his reputation shredded, and his lawyer disbarred for filing frivolous suits. Can you do that? Another pause. Excellent. I'll send flowers to your daughter's wedding. He ended the call and turned back to me. That same dangerous smile still in place. What did you just do? I asked. I hired the second best law firm in the city. He made a third call. The best one represents me in other matters, and I can't have a conflict of interest. But Karen Chen has won cases against the IRS, the SEC, and 3 different governments. Your ex-husband just brought a knife to a nuclear war. Yusok, I can't afford. You're not paying. He held up a hand, silencing me as someone answered his call. David, I'm sending you a name. Andrew's voice. I want everything. Tax returns, employment records, social media history, traffic violations, every email he's sent in the last 5 years. And David? I want it by tonight. He listened. Because if you can do it by tonight, I'll double your rate. If you can do it by lunch, I'll triple it. He ended the call and pocketed his phone, then walked back to where I sat frozen at the island. This is what you don't understand about men like Andrews, he said quietly. They think power comes from humiliation, from making someone feel small. But real power? He picked up his coffee, took a sip. Real power is having enough money to make someone wish they'd never been born. I don't want revenge, I said. I just want him to leave me alone. Those are the same thing. Yusok set down his cup. He filed a legal action against you while you're 6 months pregnant with my child. He froze your accounts to starve you into submission. He did this knowing you have no resources, no support, nowhere to turn. His eyes went cold. Except you do have somewhere to turn. You have me, and he's about to learn what happens when you corner something that belongs to me. I don't belong to you. The baby does. He said it simply, like it was fact. And anyone who threatens her mother threatens her. That makes this personal, Evelyn. That makes this the kind of fight I actually enjoy. My phone buzzed with a new email. Yusok glanced at the screen and smiled wider. That was fast, he said. Karen's already filed a motion to dismiss with prejudice. She's also filing a countersuit for harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and abuse of process. Your ex-husband's lawyer should be getting served right about now. I stared at him. This man who could make phone calls that destroyed lives, who could smile while planning someone's financial ruin, who terrified me and protected me in equal measure. Why are you doing this? I asked. Because I can. He finished his coffee. And because when I told you I'd burn the world down for our daughter, I meant it. Your ex-husband just gave me someone to start with. Outside, somewhere in the city below, Andrew's voice was probably sitting at his desk, confident that his lawsuit would bring me crawling back, that he'd won. He had no idea the war had just begun, and he'd already lost. The clinic was nothing like the county health center where I'd gone for my first ultrasound. That place had flickering, fluorescent lights and chairs held together with duct tape, where you waited for 2 hours past your appointment time while a TV played soap operas no one watched. This place had soft lighting and leather chairs and a receptionist who'd called me Mrs. Yu before I could correct her. Yusok had made the appointment without asking me, the same way he did everything. Just informed me that morning that we were leaving at 2, that his driver would take us, that the doctor was the best in the city and had cleared her schedule specifically for us. I should have been angry about the presumption. Instead, I was terrified. We sat in the waiting room now, Yusok in a charcoal suit that made him look like he was attending a board meeting rather than a medical appointment. His hands rested on his knees, perfectly still, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes tracked every person who entered or left. A nurse pushed a woman in a wheelchair past us, and his whole body coiled like he was preparing for an attack. "You don't have to be here," I said quietly. "I've done this before. It's just an ultrasound. I want to be here." He didn't look at me. "I should have been at the first one, and the second. Every single one you did alone." The guilt in his voice surprised me. Yusok didn't do guilt. He did control, decisiveness, lethal certainty. But sitting here in this waiting room, he looked almost vulnerable, almost human. Evelyn Myers? A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand, smiling the professional smile of someone who delivered good news and bad news with equal warmth. Yusok stood before I could, offering me his hand. I took it, letting him steady me as I rose. The baby had dropped lower in the past week, pressing on nerves that made my legs tingle and my back scream. Walking had become an exercise in controlled falling. The exam room was warm, almost too warm, with a large monitor on a rolling cart and a padded table covered in sterile paper. The nurse, her name tag said Jennifer, gestured for me to lie down while she squeezed gel onto my exposed belly. The cold made me flinch. "First baby?" Jennifer asked, positioning the ultrasound wand. "Yes," I said at the same moment Yusok said. "Our first." Jennifer glanced between us, her smile never wavering, professional enough not to comment on the correction. She pressed the wand against my skin, angling it, and the monitor flickered to life with grainy black and white shapes that meant nothing to me. Then the sound filled the room, fast and strong, like a horse galloping. The baby's heartbeat. I'd heard it before, at the county clinic, but it hit differently this time. Maybe because Yusok was here. Maybe because this felt real in a way it hadn't when I was alone, pretending I could raise a child on $400 and rejection emails. "There she is," Jennifer said, pointing at the screen. "See? That's her head, and those are her hands. She's measuring right on track for 26 weeks. Heart rate is perfect at 145 beats per minute." I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of the shapes, and then I saw it. The profile of a face, impossibly small, with a nose and lips and a chin. My daughter. Our daughter. I turned to say something to Yusok and stopped. He was crying, not sobbing, not making a sound. Just silent tears tracking down his face while he stared at the monitor like it was showing him the meaning of life. His hand found mine on the table, gripped it, hard enough to hurt. "That's her?" His voice cracked on the question. "That's our baby. That's her," Jennifer confirmed, moving the wand to show different angles. "Would you like to see her feet? She's being cooperative today." Yusok nodded, incapable of words. I watched him watch the screen. This man who'd terrified Andrews into submission without throwing a punch, who'd threatened to bury my ex-husband financially, who moved through the world like violence was a language he spoke fluently. And he was crying over an ultrasound image. "She has your nose," he said finally, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "See? The way it curves at the end." "I think it's too early to tell," I said, but my voice was thick with something I didn't want to name. "No." He leaned closer to the screen, his free hand reaching out like he wanted to touch it. "That's your nose. She's going to look like you." Jennifer smiled and continued her examination, pointing out organs and measurements, explaining that everything looked healthy, that the baby was growing exactly as she should. But I barely heard her. I was watching Yusok memorize every pixel of that screen, his tears drying on his face, his expression transformed into something I'd never seen before. Wonder. Pure, unguarded wonder. "Can we get pictures?" he asked Jennifer. "As many as you can print." "Of course." She pressed some buttons on the machine. "I'll print out a whole sheet for you." The appointment lasted 20 more minutes. Jennifer measured everything, checked blood flow, confirmed the due date. Yusok didn't let go of my hand the entire time, didn't look away from the screen except to look at me, his eyes asking questions he didn't know how to voice. When we left, he carried the ultrasound photos like they were made of glass. In the car, he studied them under the interior lights, his finger tracing the outline of the baby's face. "I'm going to be a good father," he said suddenly. "I know you don't believe me. I know you think I'm too violent, too damaged, too much a part of a world that destroys things. But I'm going to be good for her, Evelyn. I swear it. You's sake. I've already started the process." He looked up from the photos. "The lawyers are drafting the paperwork to transfer my leadership. My second-in-command will take over operations. I'll keep the legitimate businesses, the real estate, the restaurants, the investments, everything else I'm walking away from." My breath caught. "You're serious." I was always serious. He tucked the photos carefully into his jacket pocket, right over his heart. "I told you I'd leave that world for her. For you. Did you think I was lying? I thought you were saying what I wanted to hear. I don't say things I don't mean." His hand found mine again in the darkness of the car. "That baby in there? She's going to grow up knowing her father chose her, that he picked her over everything else. That's the man I'm going to be." I looked at him, really looked at him, at the tears still drying on his face, the ultrasound photos pressed against his heart, the desperate hope in his eyes that I wouldn't reject him again. "I want to believe you," I whispered. "Then do." He brought my hand to his lips, kissed my knuckles. "Give me the chance to prove it. That's all I'm asking." The baby kicked hard against my ribs, and I wondered if she could hear us, if she understood that her father was trying to become someone new, someone worthy of the tiny heartbeat we'd heard galloping on that monitor. "Okay," I said. "Okay." Yusok's grip tightened on my hand, and in the darkness of the car, I felt something shift between us. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. Maybe the start of believing that people could change, that monsters could become men, that love could be stronger than the violence that forged it. It's easy to judge a book by its cover, or a man by his tattoos. We see the ink, the reputation, the dangerous world Yusok comes from, and we make assumptions. But did you see him in that ultrasound room? Did you see him cry when he heard his daughter's heartbeat? If you think Yusok is going to be a better father than Andrew's Boyce ever could have been, type Team Yusok in the comments. Because some men are born fathers, and some men choose to become them, and that choice makes all the difference. The post went live at 11:34 p.m. on a Tuesday, uploaded to every social media platform. Andrew still had access to under a burner account he'd created specifically for this purpose. He'd been planning it for 2 weeks, ever since Karen Chen's lawyers had eviscerated his lawsuit so thoroughly that his own attorney had dropped him as a client. The post featured 3 photos. The first was Evelyn, taken through the cafe window with a telephoto lens, her pregnant belly visible beneath a sweater as she sat alone at the penthouse island. The second was a grainy shot of Yusok entering the building, his tattoos visible above his collar. The third was the building itself, a glass and steel tower in the financial district, with the address helpfully circled in red. The caption read, "Help. My ex-wife Evelyn Myers is being held hostage by this man, Yusok, known criminal. She's 6 months pregnant and afraid to leave. Building address below. If anyone knows her, please contact authorities. She needs help. Number save Evelyn. Number domestic violence. Number pregnant and trapped." Within an hour, the post had been shared 40 times. Within 2 hours, 200. By morning, it had gone viral in the true crime community, picked up by amateur sleuths and keyboard warriors who loved nothing more than a damsel in distress and a tattooed villain to hate. Andrew sat in his apartment, watching the share count climb, and smiled. Let Yusok's expensive lawyers try to fight this. You couldn't sue the internet. You couldn't threaten thousands of strangers into silence. And you definitely couldn't keep Evelyn hidden when her face and location were being broadcast to anyone with a Wi-Fi connection. He didn't think about what else might be watching. Who else might be interested in Yusok's location? In a warehouse across the city, in a part of town where streetlights went dark and stayed dark, a man named Chen Wei stared at his phone screen with interest that bordered on hunger. He zoomed in on the photo of Yusok, studying the tattoos on his neck, the set of his shoulders, the building he was entering. Chen Wei had been looking for Yusok for 6 months. Ever since the treaty negotiations had fallen apart, and Yusok had made it clear he had no interest in sharing territory with the Red Dragon faction. Ever since Yusok had started consolidating power, absorbing smaller organizations, building an empire that threatened everything Chen Wei had spent a decade constructing. And now some idiotic American had gift-wrapped Yusok's location and posted it online for the world to see. Chen Wei made a call. Spoke in Mandarin too rapid for any translator app to follow. Within minutes, his phone lit up with responses. Confirmations. Plans falling into place like dominoes. If Yusok was vulnerable enough to be photographed entering a residential building, he was vulnerable enough to die. I woke up to Yusok's phone ringing at 3 a.m. Not the phone he'd given me, but his real phone. The one that only rang when something was seriously wrong. He answered it in Korean, his voice sharp, then sharper. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. Danger. He ended the call and was out of bed before I could ask what was happening, pulling on clothes with military efficiency. Dark pants, dark shirt, the kind of outfit designed to disappear into shadows. What's wrong? I asked, sitting up. The baby protested the sudden movement with a sharp kick to my bladder. Your ex-husband did something stupid. Yusok was at the window now, looking down at the street 42 floors below. Very stupid. What did he do? He turned to face me, and his expression made my blood run cold. He posted your location online. Photos of you. Photos of me. The address of this building. Spun some story about me holding you hostage. Oh God. My hands went to my stomach automatically. Can you take it down? Already working on it. But it's been up for 4 hours, Evelyn. It's been shared thousands of times. And it's not just concerned citizens who've seen it. He pulled out his phone, showed me a screenshot of the post. My rivals know where I am now. The Red Dragon faction has been looking for an opening for months. Your ex-husband just gave it to them. I don't understand. Why would they care about some random post? Because I've been careful. I've kept my residences secret, my movements unpredictable. I've made myself a ghost. His jaw tightened. And in one stupid, petty act of revenge, Andrew's voice put a target on your back and mine, on our daughters. The baby kicked again, harder this time, like she could sense my panic. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. What do? We leave. Yusok was already moving, pulling a bag from the closet I didn't know existed. Jin is bringing the car around. We have maybe an hour before they mobilize, maybe less if they were already watching the building. Watching? You think they're here? I know they're coming. He threw clothes into the bag without looking at them. Chen Wei doesn't miss opportunities like this. He'll send a team. Probably already has. We need to be gone before they arrive. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. The truth is out there now. You're welcome. A. Andrews. Gloating about what he'd done. Not understanding the consequences. Not caring about anything except making me suffer. He has no idea what he's done, I said, my voice shaking. No. Yusok zipped the bag closed. But he's going to find out. And when I'm done keeping you safe, when our daughter is born and you're both secure, I'm going to make sure he understands exactly what happens when you endanger my family. The lights in the penthouse suddenly went dark. Not the power the backup generator kicked in immediately, but the main lights, like someone had cut the breaker. Yusok's hand went to his waistband, came back with a gun I hadn't known he was carrying. Get in the bathroom, he said quietly. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you to. Yusok. Now Evelyn. I moved as fast as my pregnant body would allow, stumbling into the master bathroom, locking the door with shaking hands. The marble was cold under my bare feet. I could hear voices in the penthouse, low and urgent. Yusok speaking in Korean, another voice responding. Jin, maybe, or someone else. Then I heard it. The sound of the front door being forced open, the splintering of wood that probably cost more than a car, and Yusok's voice, cold and lethal. You picked the wrong night to come here. What followed was chaos. Sounds I didn't want to identify. Impacts and crashes and the sharp crack of something that might have been gunfire, but I couldn't be sure because my ears were ringing, and the baby was kicking frantically, and I was sinking to the bathroom floor with my hands over my ass, stomach, trying to protect her from violence that was already here. The post was still live, still being shared, still directing more attention to a building where a pregnant woman cowered in a bathroom while men fought and bled in the darkness outside. Andrew's voice had wanted to expose Yusok's secrets. Instead, he'd started a war, and I was trapped in the middle of it, counting my daughter's kicks and praying we'd both survive until morning. The gunfire had stopped 20 minutes ago, but my ears were still ringing. Yusok had pulled me from the bathroom, his shirt torn and blood on his knuckles. Not his blood, he'd assured me, though I wasn't sure that made it better. Jin was in the living room, on the phone, barking orders in Korean, while two other men I'd never seen before dragged bodies toward the service elevator. I didn't ask if they were dead. Didn't want to know. "We're leaving," Yusok said, his hand firm on my lower back as he guided me toward the door. "Right now. There's a plane waiting at a private airfield in Jersey. We'll be in the air in 90 minutes. "A plane to where?" My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Seoul. My family has compounds there. Secure, untouchable. You'll be safe until the baby comes." I stopped walking. "I'm not going to Korea. Evelyn, this isn't a debate." He kept his voice level, but I could see the tension in his jaw. "Chen Wei knows where we are. He sent 4 men tonight. He'll send 40 tomorrow. The only way to keep you safe is to get you somewhere he can't reach." I said no. I pulled away from his grip. "I'm not having my baby in a foreign country where I don't speak the language, where I don't know anyone. You know me." His eyes were desperate now. "That's enough." "It's not." And then the pain hit, sharp and sudden, radiating from my lower back around to my stomach. I gasped, doubling over, my hands clutching the doorframe. Yusok caught me before I could fall. "What's wrong, Evelyn? What is it?" "I don't know." The pain was receding, but something felt wrong. Wet. I looked down and saw liquid pooling on the marble floor beneath me. Clear, tinged with blood. "Oh God. Jin." Yusok's voice cracked like a whip. "We need a car. Now. Hospital. Closest one." "No hospital." Jin appeared beside us, his phone still pressed to his ear. "Chen Wei will have people watching every ER in the city. The moment she's admitted, they'll know." "I don't care. There's a private clinic in Queens," Jin interrupted. "Dr. Sarah Kim. She's done work for us before. Discreet. I can have her there in 30 minutes. Another contraction hit, stronger this time. I heard myself make a sound I didn't recognize, animal and desperate. The baby was coming, 3.5 months early. Because of stress, because of violence, because Andrew's voice had posted my location online and started a war he didn't understand. "Call her," Yusok said. "Tell her we're coming." The ride to Queens was a blur of pain and panic. Yusok held me in the back seat while Jin drove like he was fleeing a crime scene, which, I supposed, he was. My contractions were 7 minutes apart, then 5, then 3. Too fast. Everything was happening too fast. "Stay with me," Yusok murmured against my hair. "Just breathe. We're almost there. It's too early." Tears streamed down my face. "She's not ready. I'm only 26 weeks, Yusok. She's too small, she can't. She's going to be fine." His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "She's our daughter. She's strong." The clinic was in a nondescript building between a bodega and a laundromat, the kind of place you'd walk past without noticing. Jin pulled into an alley behind it, where a woman in scrubs was waiting by a service entrance. Dr. Kim, I assumed. She looked about 50, with silver streaks in her black hair and the calm expression of someone who'd seen everything twice. "Get her inside," she said, not bothering with introductions. "How far apart are the contractions?" 2 minutes, I gasped as another one hit. "Maybe less." Dr. Kim's expression tightened, but she didn't panic. "This way. I've got a room ready." The clinic was small, barely more than a hallway with 3 exam rooms and a procedure room in the back. "Doctor." Kim led us to the largest one, where an exam table had been converted into something approximating a delivery bed. Medical equipment I didn't recognize blinked and hummed in the corners. "This isn't a hospital," I said, stating the obvious. "If something goes wrong, I have everything we need for a premature delivery, doctor." Kim interrupted, helping me onto the table. "I've done this before, but I need you to focus, Evelyn. Your baby needs you calm." Calm. She wanted me calm while my body was trying to deliver a baby that wasn't ready to be born, in a clinic that wasn't equipped for this. because my ex-husband had decided revenge was more important than my life. Yusok gripped my hand. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Dr. Kim was doing an exam, her face a mask of professional concern. You're already at 6 centimeters. This baby is coming whether we're ready or not. Is she okay? I asked. Is the baby okay? Her heartbeat is strong. That's what matters right now. Doctor, Kim snapped on fresh gloves. But we need to move fast. Jin, I need you to check the perimeter. Make sure we're secure. Already on it. Jin disappeared, his phone to his ear again. Another contraction crashed over me, and I screamed. Not the polite, controlled sounds from birthing videos, but something primal. Yusok's hand in mine was the only thing tethering me to reality. That's it, Dr. Kim coached. Don't fight it. Work with your body. I can't do this, I sobbed between contractions. It's too soon. She's too small. You can and you will. Yusok's face filled my vision, his eyes fierce. You're the strongest person I know. You ran from me for 6 months while pregnant. You survived Andrews. You survived tonight. You can survive this. What if she doesn't? The words ripped out of me. What if I lose her because of what he did? You won't. He pressed his forehead to mine. She's going to be fine. And when she's healthy and strong and beautiful like her mother, I'm going to make sure Andrew's Boyce understands exactly what he's done. I'm going to make him wish he'd never learned your name. Jin reappeared in the doorway, his expression grim. We've got a problem. 2 cars just pulled up outside. Chen Wei's men. They must have followed us. Dr. Kim's hands never stopped moving. How long do we have? Minutes. Maybe less. Yusok stood, pulled a gun from somewhere I hadn't seen. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Jin. Yusok, no. I tried to sit up, but another contraction hit, stealing my voice. I'm coming back, he promised. I'm going to meet my daughter Evelyn. But first I need to make sure she has a world to come into. He kissed my forehead, hard and desperate, then disappeared into the hallway. I heard the door lock click. Heard footsteps, voices, the sound of weapons being checked. And then I heard nothing but my own screaming as my body tried to bring a baby into a world that was trying to kill us both. Let that sink in for a moment. Andrew's Boyce put a pregnant woman in danger, a woman carrying a child just to soothe his own bruised ego. He posted her location online, spun lies, and triggered a gang war without caring about the consequences. All because he couldn't handle being humiliated in a cafe. If you hate people who put others at risk for their own selfishness, people who value their pride over human life, hit subscribe right now and show you stand for integrity. Because what happens next is going to decide whether Evelyn and her baby survive Andrews' narcissistic revenge. The contractions were one on top of another now, no break between them. Just endless waves of pain that made me forget my own name. Doctor. Kim's voice cut through the fog, telling me to push, to breathe, to hold on just a little longer. But I could barely hear her over the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. And then I heard something else. Gunfire. Sharp cracks that echoed through the thin walls of the clinic. Don't stop pushing, Dr. Kim ordered, her hands steady even as the building shook with violence. Your baby is almost here. I can see her head. Yusok, I gasped, trying to turn toward the door, is handling it. You focus on your daughter. Dr. Kim's voice was iron. Push, Evelyn, now. Outside, the alley had become a war zone. Yusok crouched behind a dumpster, Jin on his left, 2 of his men flanking the clinic's back entrance. Chen Wei's team had come prepared, 6 men, maybe 7, armed with automatic weapons and zero concern about collateral damage. A bullet sparked off the brick wall inches from Yusok's head. He returned fire, 2 precise shots that dropped one of Chen Wei's men before he could reload. The body fell in a heap near the bodega's back door. They're trying to flank us, Jin shouted over the gunfire. 3 coming around the east side. Yusok didn't answer, just moved with lethal efficiency. This was his world. Not boardrooms or penthouses or ultrasound appointments. This was where he'd been forged, in alleys like this one, making split-second decisions about who lived and who died. Inside the clinic, I screamed as another contraction peaked. Dr. Kim's face was a mask of concentration, her hands doing things I couldn't see, didn't want to see. One more push, she said. Give me everything you have. I pushed, and something inside me tore. Pain beyond pain. The kind that made you understand why women used to die in childbirth. Why it was called labor, like war. And then I heard it. A sound that made everything else disappear. Crying, high and thin and furious. My daughter's first protest against a world that had tried to kill her before she even took her first breath. She's here, Dr. Kim said, and her voice cracked with emotion for the first time. You did it, Evelyn. Your baby girl is here. But I couldn't see her. Dr. Kim had turned away, working fast, the baby's cries getting weaker instead of stronger. Too weak, too small. Is she okay? I tried to sit up. Let me see her. She's breathing. That's what matters. Doctor. Kim wrapped something tiny in blankets, still working. But she's premature. 3 pounds, maybe less. I need to stabilize her. The gunfire outside intensified. A window shattered somewhere in the front of the clinic. Men shouting in Korean and English, the chaos bleeding through the walls. And then a new sound. Sirens. Multiple vehicles screeching to a halt outside. Andrew's boy stepped out of the news van before the reporter could stop him, his phone already out, recording. He'd called Channel 7 himself. Spun a story about his ex-wife being held hostage by Korean gangsters, and promised them exclusive footage of the rescue. The producer had been skeptical until Andrews showed her the viral post, the photos, the address. Now they were here, and it was better than Andrews had imagined. Police cars, the building surrounded, actual gunfire echoing from the alley. This was going to be everywhere. CNN, Fox News, every social media platform. Andrew's voice, the man who saved his pregnant ex-wife from a criminal empire. He was going to be a hero. Mr. Boyce, you should stay in the van, the reporter said. But Andrews was already walking toward the police barricade, his phone held high. The detective in charge, a tired-looking woman with gray hair, held up a hand. Sir, you need to step back. This is an active crime scene. My ex-wife is in there, Andrews said, loud enough for the camera to catch. Evelyn Myers. She's being held hostage by a man named Yoo Sok. I'm the one who called this in. I'm the reason you're here. The detective's expression shifted. You posted her location online? Yes, to save her. Andrews gestured at the clinic. She's 6 months pregnant. He's been keeping her prisoner. I had to do something. The detective exchanged a look with her partner. Sir, we're going to need you to... The front window of the clinic exploded outward. A man came flying through it, hit the pavement hard, didn't move. Blood pooled beneath him, black in the streetlights. Andrews stumbled backward, his phone nearly slipping from his hands. That wasn't supposed to happen. This was supposed to be a rescue, not a massacre. More gunfire from the alley. The police drew their weapons, shouting commands. The news crew ducked behind their van, and Andrews stood frozen, finally understanding what he'd done. He hadn't exposed a kidnapping. He'd given Chen Wei's location to Yoo Sok's enemies. He'd started a gang war, and Evelyn was in the middle of it. Inside, Dr. Kim pressed the baby into my arms for the first time. She was impossibly small, her skin almost translucent, her fingers like flower petals. A tube ran to her nose, helping her breathe. Her eyes were closed, her chest rising and falling in rapid, shallow movements. She's fighting, Dr. Kim said softly. That's a good sign. I couldn't speak, could only stare at this tiny person who'd been inside me for 6 months, who'd decided to come early because the world outside was too violent to wait for. She had Yoo Sok's nose, I realized. The curve Dr. Kim had been right about at the ultrasound. The door burst open. Yoo Sok stood there, gun still in hand, his shirt soaked with blood. For a terrible moment I thought he was shot, but then I saw his eyes, saw them land on me, on the baby in my arms, and watched his expression transform. He dropped the gun, crossed the room in 3 strides, fell to his knees beside the delivery bed. She's here, I whispered. Our daughter is here. His hand reached out, trembling, and touched the baby's tiny fist. Her fingers wrapped around his thumb instinctively, and Yoo Sok made a sound I'd never heard from him. Half sob, half laugh, completely broken. She's so small, he breathed. She's early. Because of the stress. Because of... My voice cracked. Because of Andrews. Yusok's eyes went hard even as tears tracked down his face. Jin just told me. He showed up outside with a news crew. Thought he was rescuing you. He's here? Terror flooded through me. Yusok. He can't. He's not getting near you. Yusok stood, kissed my forehead, then the baby's. The police have him in custody. For now. Outside, Andrews was discovering what it meant to be the man who'd triggered a gang war in a residential neighborhood. The detective was reading him his Miranda rights, while the reporter's camera captured every word. Reckless endangerment, inciting violence, filing false reports. He tried to explain. That he was just trying to help. That Evelyn needed saving. That he'd done everything right. But the blood on the pavement and the premature baby fighting for her life inside told a different story. And Andrew's voice, for the first time in his life, realized that some mistakes couldn't be undone, that some consequences couldn't be talked away. That being right in your own mind didn't mean you hadn't destroyed everything you touched. To appeal to Yusok. The baby wouldn't stop crying. Thin, reedy wails that sounded too weak to come from a living thing. Doctor. Kim had her in an incubator now, cobbled together from equipment that looked like it belonged in a hospital but miniaturized, jury-rigged for a clinic that was never meant to handle premature births. Her oxygen levels are holding, Doctor, Kim said, adjusting tubes and monitors with practiced hands. But she needs a NICU, real equipment. I can keep her stable for maybe 12 hours. After that we move her. Yusok's voice was steel. The moment it's safe. It's not safe now? I asked from the delivery bed, where I lay covered in sweat and blood, and the aftermath of bringing life into the world during a war. No. Yusok didn't elaborate. Didn't need to. I could still hear voices outside, police radios crackling, the sound of crime scene tape being unrolled. Jin appeared in the doorway, his face grim. We've got a problem. Another one? Yusok's hand never left mine. Your ex-husband is asking to speak with you. Jin's expression suggested this was the stupidest thing he'd heard all week. Says it's urgent. Tell him to rot. He's claiming he has information. About Chen Wei's operation. Says he'll only tell you. Yusok's jaw tightened. He's lying. Probably. Jin shrugged. But he's making a scene outside. The police are getting tired of him. If you don't talk to him, they're going to drag him away. And then we lose any chance of finding out what he actually knows. I watched Yusok war with himself, every instinct probably screaming to ignore Andrews, to let him face whatever consequences the legal system would hand down. But there was something else in his eyes. Calculation. The mind that had built an empire weighing possibilities. 5 minutes, he said finally. He gets 5 minutes, and then I never want to see his face again. Yusok, don't. I tried to sit up, but my body wasn't cooperating. Everything hurt. He's not worth it. I know. He kissed my forehead, lingered there. But if there's even a chance he knows something that could keep you and Hana safe, I need to hear it. He left before I could argue. Jin followed, leaving me alone with Dr. Kim and the sound of my daughter's labored breathing. I stared at the incubator, at the impossibly tiny person inside, and felt something shift in my chest. This was real now, not theoretical, not something I was planning for. She was here, alive, fragile, and somewhere outside, the man who'd nearly killed us both was trying to bargain his way out of the consequences. Andrews stood in handcuffs near a police cruiser, his expensive suit rumpled, his face pale under the streetlights. The detective had agreed to let Yusok talk to him, off the record, she'd said, with a look that suggested she knew exactly who Yusok was and didn't care as long as nobody else died tonight. Yusok approached slowly, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. Andrew straightened when he saw him, trying to summon some dignity despite the handcuffs and the blood on his shoes. You wanted to talk, Yusok said. No preamble, no pleasantries. Talk. I made a mistake. The words came out rushed, desperate. I didn't know. I didn't realize what would happen. I thought I was helping Evelyn. You thought you were punishing her. Yusok's voice was flat. For leaving you. For moving on. For carrying another man's child. Don't insult me with lies. Andrews flinched but pressed on. Okay. Yes, I was angry. But I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I didn't know about the gang stuff, the territory wars, any of it. I just wanted... You just wanted what? Yusok stepped closer, and Andrews instinctively retreated until his back hit the police car. To destroy her? To make her suffer? You froze her bank accounts. You sued her for nothing. And when that didn't work, when my lawyers buried you, you posted her location online and painted a target on her back. I can help. Andrew's voice cracked. That's why I asked to talk to you. I can help fix this. How? Yusok's tone suggested he already knew the answer was nothing. The men who came tonight. Chenwei's people. I overheard them talking before the shooting started. They were on their phones, reporting back to someone. I heard a location. An address in Brooklyn. I think that's where Chenwei is hiding. Yusok studied him for a long moment. You expect me to believe you happened to overhear critical intelligence in the middle of a gunfight? I was recording everything on my phone. Andrews fumbled with his pocket, the handcuffs making it awkward. It's all on here. The address, the conversation, everything. I'll give it to you. Just tell the police this was a misunderstanding. That I was trying to help. Please. You want me to save you? Yusok's smile was terrible. After you nearly killed the mother of my child. After you triggered premature labor that might cost my daughter her life. You want mercy. I didn't know she was pregnant. Andrews was crying now, tears and snot running down his face. I thought she was just I didn't know about the baby. You knew she was vulnerable. Yusok's hand shot out, grabbed Andrews by the throat, lifted him slightly off his feet. The nearby officers tensed but didn't intervene. You knew she was alone. You knew she had nothing. And you decided that made her a target instead of someone who deserved protection. Andrews clawed at Yusok's hand, unable to speak, his face turning red. Yusok. Jin's voice, quiet but firm. The baby needs you more than this piece of shit does. Yusok held Andrews there for another 5 seconds, watching him struggle, watching him understand what it felt like to be powerless. Then he dropped him. Andrews collapsed against the car, gasping. Give the phone to Detective Ramirez, Yusok said. Tell her everything you know about Chenwei, and then you're going to prison. Andrews. Not for the false reports or the reckless endangerment. Those are just the charges they can prove today. He leaned in close, his voice dropping to something that made Andrew's blood run cold. You're going to prison because I'm going to make sure every district attorney, every judge, every person who matters knows exactly what you did tonight. I'm going to make sure your name becomes synonymous with the kind of coward who endangers pregnant women for ego. And when you get out, if you get out, you're going to spend the rest of your miserable life looking over your shoulder, wondering if today is the day I decide that legal consequences weren't enough. Please. Beg your lawyer. Beg the judge. Beg God if you think he's listening. Yusok straightened, adjusted his bloody shirt. But don't ever speak to me again. Don't think about Evelyn. Don't even dream about my daughter. Because the only reason you're alive right now is because she just came into this world. And I don't want her first day to be the day her father became a murderer. He walked away, leaving Andrews sobbing against the police car, his phone clutched in shaking hands. Detective Ramirez approached, her expression somewhere between pity and disgust. Mr. Boyce, she said. Let's talk about what you know. Yusok returned to the delivery room to find me holding Hana through the incubator's access ports, my finger wrapped in her tiny fist. Doctor. Kim had stepped out to give us privacy, or maybe just to breathe after the chaos of the last hour. Is he gone? I asked without looking up. For now. Maybe forever. Yusok knelt beside the incubator, his face level with mine. He gave the police information about Chenwei. It might help end this. And if it doesn't, then I end it myself. He reached through the other port, letting Hana's free hand wrap around his finger. But not tonight. Tonight, I'm exactly where I need to be. We stayed like that, both of us connected to this impossibly small person who'd survived a war to be born. Outside, Andrews was being loaded into a police car, his 15 minutes of imagined heroism over. Inside, our daughter fought for every breath, and we fought with her. Some battles are won with violence, others with love, and some, the ones that matter most, are won by simply refusing to let go. 6 months later, I sat in a coffee shop in Brooklyn, a real one this time. Not hiding, not stealing Wi-Fi, not running from anything. My laptop was open to a document titled From Shadows to Sunrise, a Memoir, and the cursor blinked at the end of Chapter 12, waiting for me to find the words to describe what it felt like to watch your ex-husband get arrested while your daughter fought for her first breaths. The coffee was good. Expensive, but good. I could afford the expensive now. The book deal had come 3 months after that night in the clinic. A publisher had seen the news coverage, not the sensationalized version Andrews had tried to create, but the real story that emerged in the aftermath. Pregnant woman survives gang violence. A premature baby defies odds. Reformed crime boss walks away from empire to become a father. They'd offered me a 6-figure advance. I'd accepted before my lawyer finished reading the contract. My phone buzzed with a text from Yusok. Hana just smiled at me. An actual smile. Not gas. I have witnesses. I smiled at the screen, typed back. Everything is gas until 4 months. You have gas witnesses. Jin agrees it was a real smile. He said she has your sense of humor already. Jin is enabling your delusions. I'll be home in an hour. Home. The word still felt strange. Not the penthouse we'd left that the day after the shooting, moved to a brownstone in Park Slope with a backyard and neighbors who baked cookies and didn't ask questions about tattoos or past lives. Yusok had bought it in cash, then spent 2 weeks installing a security system that could probably defend against a small army. Old habits died hard, but he'd kept his promise. The leadership transfer had been finalized 2 months after Hana was born. His second-in-command now ran what remained of the organization smaller, quieter, focused on legitimate business with only the occasional shadow of what it used to be. Yusok had walked away clean, keeping only the real estate holdings and restaurants that operated in daylight. He spent his days now in board meetings for his property development company, and his nights on the floor of Hana's nursery, reading to her in Korean from books his mother sent from Seoul. He'd learned to change diapers with the same precision he'd once used to plan territory acquisitions, had mastered the art of the 3 a.m. bottle feeding, had cried the first time Hana had recognized his voice and turned her head toward him. The ruthless crime boss had become a father, and he was terrifyingly good at it. The news about Andrews had come in stages, each one more satisfying than the last. The police had found evidence on his laptop, searches for hired investigators, communications with people connected to Chen Wei's network, proof that he'd knowingly endangered Evelyn by posting her location, evidence that Yusok's people had definitely not planted, according to Detective Ramirez's official report, though her expression when she'd told me suggested she knew exactly where it had come from and chose not to care. Andrews had been charged with reckless endangerment, cyberstalking, and filing false police reports. His lawyer had tried to argue he was just a concerned ex-husband, but the prosecutor had painted a picture of a narcissistic man who'd triggered a gang war because his ego couldn't handle rejection. The jury had deliberated for 3 hours, found him guilty on all counts. He'd gotten 18 months in a minimum security facility, plus 3 years probation, a restraining order that would last until Hana turned 18, and a criminal record that had destroyed what remained of his corporate career. His mother had called me once, crying, begging me to write a letter to the judge asking for leniency. I'd listened to her entire plea, then quietly said, "Your son nearly killed my daughter," and hung up. I hadn't heard from her again. Now, I saved my document and closed my laptop. The memoir was due to my editor next month. Advance reviews were already calling it a gripping story of survival and transformation, impossible to put down, a testament to maternal strength in the face of violence. One reviewer had Adi Day, compared it to Educated Meets Goodfellas, but with more heart. I dedicated it to Hana, for my daughter who survived the storm to be born into sunshine. The brownstone was warm when I got home, smelling like whatever Korean dish Yusok's mother had sent in her latest care package. She'd never forgiven him for not bringing Evelyn and the baby to Seoul, but she'd made peace with it by shipping approximately half of Korea to Brooklyn every month. I found them in the nursery. Hana was on her playmat, all chubby legs and grabbing hands. No longer the terrifyingly fragile preemie who'd spent her first 6 weeks in the NICU. She'd caught up to her developmental milestones. Dr. Kim had assured us at the last checkup. You'd never know she'd been born early. Yusok lay on the floor beside her, still in his work clothes, his tie loosened, pointing at picture cards and naming them in Korean and English. When he saw me, his face lit up in a way that still made my chest tight. "Tell her," he said. Tell her that smile was real. Everything is gas until... It wasn't gas. He sat up, scooped Hana into his arms. She immediately grabbed his collar, trying to eat it. She looked right at me and smiled. I'm putting it in her baby book. You keep a baby book? Jin keeps a baby book. I supervise. He stood, Hana secure against his chest. How's the writing? Almost done. My editor thinks it'll be published next spring. Good. He kissed the top of Hana's head, then mine. You should tell the story. People need to know what happened, what he did. Tomorrow was Hana's 100-day celebration, a Korean tradition Yusok's mother had insisted on despite the distance. She'd sent an entire hanbok outfit for the baby pink and gold silk that probably cost more than my first car. The brownstone would be full of people. Jin and his wife, Dr. Kim, Yusok's business partners. Even Detective Ramirez, who'd become an unlikely friend in the aftermath. We'd take photos, eat too much food, celebrate that Hana had survived her first 100 days in a world that had tried very hard to prevent her from existing. And Andrew's Boyce would be in prison, missing all of it, finally understanding that actions have consequences, and some people aren't as powerless as he'd assumed. Do you ever regret it? I asked Yusok. Walking away from everything you built? He looked down at Hana, who was now trying to eat his nose, her tiny hands patting his cheeks. I didn't walk away from everything, he said quietly. I walked towards something better. That night, after Hana was asleep in her crib with the monitor that tracked her breathing and the nightlight that projected stars on the ceiling, Yusok and I sat on the back porch with tea and the kind of comfortable silence that only comes from surviving something terrible together. Andrews gets out in 12 months, I said. I know. Are you going to... No. Yusok's hand found mine in the darkness. I'm done with that life. Done with revenge. He's already lost everything that matters. His career, his reputation, his freedom. Let that be enough. And if it's not, if he comes back, then the restraining order and the monitoring system I installed handle it. And if they don't, then I do. But only to protect you. Not for revenge. He squeezed my hand. I promised Hana I'd be a different kind of father. The kind who uses lawyers instead of fists. The kind who builds instead of destroys. You're doing pretty well at it. I have a good teacher. He pulled me closer. You never gave up on me. Even when you ran, you were still trying to save me from myself. From inside, the baby monitor crackled with the sound of Hannah's breathing steady, strong, alive against all odds. Justice served, I whispered. What? Something I'm going to write in my memoir. That justice isn't always immediate. Sometimes it takes months. But eventually people like Andrews face exactly what they've earned. Yusok smiled. And people like us? We get this. I gestured at the brownstone, the nursery upstairs, the life we'd built from the ashes of violence. We got Hana. We get peace. That's better than justice, he said. That's everything. And that's how the story ends. Andrew's Boyce, the arrogant bully who thought he could destroy Evelyn without consequences, sitting in prison while the woman he tried to break writes best-selling books and raises her daughter in peace. The man he tried to humiliate has built a legitimate empire and become the father Andrews never could have been. Sometimes justice takes time, but it's always watching. If you love seeing bullies get exactly what they deserve, if you believe that karma is real and toxic people always eventually pay the price, smash that like button one last time and comment "Justice served" right now. And if this story moved you, if you see yourself in Evelyn's strength or believe in second chances like Yusok's transformation, hit subscribe because stories like this, stories about real people overcoming real darkness, these are the stories that matter. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way toward the light.